Welcome back, Trailblazers! This is episode 7 of our Honkai Star Rail Amphoreus journey, and boy do we have a lot to cover this time around. In this patch, we finally got to learn the true origins of Merchant Cyrene, the identity of Evernight, and we even got to meet Terravox for the first time while helping Don Hung reconcile his grievances with his past life. All
and
while
grow a
making some
tail.
good headway in saving Amphoreus and launching a proper defense against Iron Tomb's birth. That's quite the list, so let's not waste any more time, shall we? As per usual, I will be summarizing the events of the previous episode briefly before getting into the meat of this one, so without further ado, here's what happened previously on Amphoreus. After witnessing Phinon's sacrifice, the Trailblazer promised to assume the role of World Bearer and enter the final cycle of Amphoreus with the intent to bring about a new form of Era Nova, one where Iron Tomb doesn't escape and destroy the cosmos, or Noose. The two are kind of linked at this point. And as the cycle reset, Mem fused with the next cycle's Cyrene, which allowed her to recover, or at least retain, all of her memories from this last cycle. So we're still chilling with our best buddy Mem here, but she just has a new body. But there's no time to relax and figure things out because there's...
Well, and the thing is, why was she able to do it this time? That's crazy, right? Is it because of us? Probably, right? That has something to do with us. Like, you gotta think about how many cycles there were before.
There's only 14 system hours left until Iron Tomb completes its self-coronation via Era Nova. Fortunately, Herta has a plan to prevent this from coming to pass. She suggests that we could take advantage of this new bug in the system that Phinon created with his sacrifice and rewrite the true purpose of Era Nova. If Iron Tomb can't make use of Era Nova, then it can't escape, and if it can't escape, it can't destroy Noose, and if it can't destroy Noose, it can't destroy the cosmos. So overall, seems like a pretty good plan. The only problem is that this plan requires administrative access to the scepter system that runs Amphoreus, and that access is tied directly to the authority of law. So if we want to rewrite the purpose of Era Nova, we're going to need to cooperate with the Chrysos Heir of Law, which is Ceredra. But we're not the only ones who need her cooperation. Lygus also needs it, despite being...
You know, I never watched her last recap, but did she ever mention how the hell we were able to just teleport to this certain year? Does anybody know still how we were able to teleport?
We're not the only ones who need her cooperation. Chrysos Heir
to light calendar 3960? Is it just a chronocognitive anchor? That's probably it, right? Am I just overthinking it? It's just the anchor that lets us do that? Because it looks like a teleport waypoint, kind of. Well, not a teleport waypoint. What do they call them? Space anchors?
Of Law, which is Ceredra. But we're not the only ones who need her cooperation. Lygus also needs it. Despite being a system administrator himself, his permissions are also tied to her authority. And he's already a few steps ahead of us. In fact, Ceredra seems quite swayed by Lygus's proposal of using Iron Tomb as a means of conquering the universe and is quite skeptical of the Trailblazer and Cyrene's intentions. She humors them anyway and invites them to a pre-battle banquet where she seizes all of their belongings, including Screwlum's chronocognitive anchor. This could have gone very badly very quickly, but Ceredra's most trusted companion, High Sealans, is very wary of Lygus and immediately sides with the Trailblazer, which is partly why Ceredra declares all of them traitors later on in the banquet. Now, Lygus assumes that this turn of events means that he has Ceredra's approval. So without warning, he warps the Trailblazer off to the Exomyth, thinking Ceredra would approve.
Nice.
But instead, it just pisses her off, so she uses the chronocognitive anchor to summon Herta and Screwlum and demands to see a demonstration of this power of paths that they possess. Lygus probably assumed that the Trailblazer would never escape the Exomyth, as they don't really have any powers that would allow them to do so. However, they do have a bit of an ally in the form of Evernight, who not only helps them escape, but also gives them the Coreflame of World-Bearing that Cyrene had apparently hidden somewhere in the River of Time, and then she sends them back to Amphoreus without any further explanations. Which is where things get a little bit weird, because apparently time does not move the same inside of the Exomyth as it does inside of Amphoreus. That hour or so that the Trailblazer spent in the Exomyth was actually 1,000 years in Amphoreus. So the current cycle was basically almost over. The Trailblazer follows a memory that Cyrene left behind for them, and listens as she explains everything that happened during that 1,000-year period, which includes the fate of every Chrysos heir. She also notably explains that Ceredra never actually intended to work with Lygus, and instead had decided to sacrifice herself in order to use her authority over the system's ultimate protocol to not just grant Herta and Screwlum access permissions to the scepter, but to also add a small amendment to the Era Nova conditions. To quote, if Era Nova's progress becomes abnormal, ignore all variables, terminate the extrapolation, and wait for Iron Tomb to form. To put it in layman's terms, if the system detects any changes to Era Nova that will affect the development of Iron Tomb in unexpected ways, allow them to proceed. She basically removed the safety mechanisms here. But this change to the protocol, as small as it may seem, should provide the Trailblazer with the opportunity to manipulate Iron Tomb's final form by rewriting the purpose of Era Nova, which also happens to be Herta's plan, the one that she told us about earlier. So that's convenient. Anyway, most of the Chrysos heirs perished during the last 1,000 years with a few notable exceptions. Anaxa, for example, used alchemy to transmute himself into a ghostly form capable—
We now to start calling him Anaxa and just start calling him Genius Society member number 80 something. Herta's 83. Rame's 81. Stephen Lloyd is 84. Okay. So Anaxa is now Genius, well, soon to be Genius Society member number 85. Bro actually finessed numero uno, top dog, big boy himself. I'm just saying that is instant in the society.
Of venturing deeper into the system, including spaces like the Exomyth, which exist outside.
Yeah, look at him. Anaxagoras? Bro was dumbfounded.
Amphoreus, and we're gonna come back to his delightful little plan in a bit. Hycelans also survived the last 1,000 years, but only as a guard to the pathway to the Vortex of Genesis, ensuring that Lygus couldn't reach it until the Trailblazer returned. So when they do return, she finally opens the gate to the Vortex, which allows both the Trailblazer and Lygus to enter, but only one shall be able to leave. And no one wants it to be Lygus. So Hycelans and the Trailblazer fight Lygus's avatar in order to distract him long enough for Cyrene to enact her plan. Because yeah, she's still technically around. And with the assistance of the geniuses and Sunday's tuning ability, Cyrene is able to use the power of remembrance to trick Lygus's inorganic mind into processing recursive memory loops in order to coerce Lygus into negotiations with his fellow Genius Society members.
Yep.
Because the big reveal of this patch is that he's actually the very first Genius Society member, Xandar
Numero
Kuwabara.
uno.
And he's also the creator of Noose, who he hates and wants to destroy. Anyway, they trap him in the Exomyth, and with Lygus out of the picture, the Trailblazer can finally offer up the Coreflame of Worldbearing to the Vortex of Genesis and recreate Amphoreus from their memories. But things don't go exactly to plan, and for once, it's not actually Lygus's fault. Because as we start the quest of this current patch and the Trailblazer attempts to reset the world, we realize that Cyrene's recap of the last 1,000 years did not include any mention of the Chrysos Heir of Time, nor did it mention the Coreflame of Time being returned to the Vortex at all. And that's when Evernight appears to elaborate on this unexpected turn of events, which I am going to embellish with further details to avoid confusion.
Yes, please. Okay, because I need clarification on the cycles. I'm pretty sure I know, but I need reassurance, something like that. I need a second opinion to say what cycle we're in.
So during the last cycle, Evernight had in her possession both the Coreflame of Worldbearing and Time. So while it looked like she gave
337. This is 337.
the Trailblazer the Coreflame of Worldbearing, she had actually tampered with the Trailblazer's memories and made them think that the Coreflame of Time was the Coreflame of Worldbearing.
Wait, what?
So that's why the Coreflame that the Trailblazer offered up to the Vortex of Genesis in this particular case was actually the Coreflame of Time and not Worldbearing. Now Evernight—
But the Coreflame of Time unhighlighted. The Coreflame of Worldbearing was still highlighted. Like we watched it de-highlight.
Could have given us both Coreflames back when she extracted us from the Exomyth. She is technically on our side after all, but she also has her own— She is technically on our side after all, but—
What is this? And why is it smudge tooled?
She also has her own ideas about how Era Nova should go down, and so—
Hold up. Did she give Lygus a BBL? She tried to give Lygus a BBL. Look at that. It's morphed. This is like what girls used to do their photos back in like 2013, bro, until everyone realized what Photoshop was. She gave Lygus a BBL. Oh my god.
She also has her own ideas about how Era Nova should go down, and so she decided to inherit the authority of time in order to tinker with Era Nova herself. hence why she only gave us one of the core flames and not the right one. With Time's authority, she believes that she can use the Rain of Sensation and the power of Oblivion to filter the Trailblazer's memories at her own discretion in order to ensure a more perfect outcome for Amphoreus' future. In other words, she still intends for the world to be reborn using the Trailblazer's memories, just only the memories that she says they can use.
See, and this is why I say my pink hair theory, man. The whole pink hair theory, fear a girl with pink hair or whatever her character story says, whatever it is, right? Telling you, they might not actually have pink hair until they're gazed at, or until they're a child of an Asura. And then we just always remember them as having pink hair. They alter our memories, they alter our brains. They altered our brains to believe Cyrene was always supposed to be here. There's so much more to it. We're just being played. We're having memories implanted. Everything is a lie. It's all a lie. Again.
Now, as for her motivations, well, we're gonna need a little bit of context for that. Like, we're gonna need to know who or what Evernight is.
Okay, here we go.
Now, technically speaking, Evernight and March are the same person. But to use their own words, March is more like the person Evernight always wanted the world to believe she was, while Evernight was all of the aspects of herself that March wanted to keep hidden. So they're two sides of the same coin. Now, the reasons for this split are related to March's true identity as one of Fuli's children, which we're gonna talk more about later on. But I kind of have to bring it up here because Evernight represents March's full power over the remembrance, which she has because of her identity as one of Fuli's children. She's essentially an emanator of the remembrance. Now, because Evernight and March are the same person.
But that's right, but Evernight doesn't want March to know that. Evernight wants to keep that a secret from March, as we saw at the end of the quest, where she said, I'm going to still keep this from you. I'm still going to hide this memory from you. She does not want her to know that. Probably, so that way, when it comes down to it, March will not decide to team up with Fuli, whenever that may be. She will stick to the good guys. Because Fuli, I mean, he's not really bad, right? But, I mean, if you're playing these tricks on people, brother, you're not really good either.
And Evernight only wants to protect March and fulfill her desires, and March's greatest desire is to travel the cosmos forever with her companions. So Evernight will do anything in her power to make sure that wish comes true, even if that means resorting to some rather extreme methods to make it happen. For this reason, and also because March doesn't want to be discovered by the Garden of Recollection, for reasons that we'll also get into later, Evernight only comes out in dire situations, and March found herself in a pretty dire situation on Amphoreus. See, March's consciousness arrived on Amphoreus long before the Trailblazer or Dan Heng showed up, but she was in a ghostly state and she couldn't really interact with the world directly. This intangible state could have been due to how she entered Amphoreus, or it could be because the scepter system mistook March for Cyrene, since they are both children of Fuli, hence why her arrival location was deep inside of the Great Tomb, where Cyrene always ends up after Finon kills her, but more on that later. I'm personally partial to this explanation because I also think the similarities that March and Cyrene share explain why they both are compatible with the Coreflame of Time. Anyway, March spent 97 days traveling through Amphoreus alone, which is likely why all of the Amphoreus tutorials feature March instead of the Trailblazer.
Ooh, I didn't notice that. Interesting catch. See, this is why, man. Look at her. Look at her,
she
man.
Was there first. And through her travels, she tried
You know what? Let me hit that right now. Like, boom!
Interact with the people
hit that
of
like button.
With minimal success. I mean, they couldn't see or hear her, but she did manage to influence some small legends and myths, which probably fed into that whole Rosie Celestial Maiden legend that the Trailblazer sparked later on. And March was even able to help Tribios escape Yannisopolis. Not only does March's interference solve this mystery, but it also gives us an idea of how long ago March arrived in Amphoreus, because that whole deal with Tribios happened a long time before the Trailblazer and Dan Heng actually showed up, in Amphoreus time.
Well, yeah, okay, in Amphoreus time, right. Okay.
That is. Anyway, after spending so much time alone, March awakes.
Okay, so that was another thing I had, because I kept saying the 97 days. I'm like, all right, yeah, that had to have been a while ago if she was with Tribios, but it is 90. She spent 97 days in Amphoreus time. It obviously wasn't 97 days in our time, because 97 days in our time would have been like maybe 3 million cycles on Amphoreus, you know, give or take a little bit.
Weakened Evernight, recalling how they'd met once before when Argenti visited the Astral Express. This act of self-reflection made her realize that the time inside of Amphoreus moves differently than it does outside of Amphoreus, so the Trailblazer and Dan Heng should be entering the Scepter's orbit soon.
Let me think. An hour was about 1,000 years. Each cycle is what? Well, let's say roughly 5,000 years, so 5 hours. So 5 hours per cycle. Let's round it up to 6. Let's say 6 hours per cycle. That way we get an even 4 cycles per day. 4 times 97 is 388. That would have been a lot of cycles. If it was, which actually, damn. Yeah, 97 days on the anywhere outside of Amphoreus is only 388 cycles. That's way less than I thought.
So the Trailblazer and Dan Heng should be entering the Scepter's orbit soon. But she'd also realized that Amphoreus is both a digital and mimetic world that's protected by a very powerful firewall that March had bypassed subconsciously by using the power of remembrance. Her companions don't have that power, and Cyrene had already warned her before she entered that no one can pass safely through that firewall, at least not without Emanator level powers. March didn't want anything bad to happen to her friend, so she decided to let Evernight take over so they could use the power of remembrance to allow the minds of Dan Heng and the Trailblazer to enter Amphoreus safely while their bodies remained outside of the Scepter's orbit. Now remember, Evernight safely while their bodies remained outside of the Scepter.
Right, yeah, but like, where the hell are our bodies, you know? We just got this little train car. We even have the memory of it crashing. And then how does us dying actually fit into this whole thing, too? Like, because remember, it said we died. They literally said we died. How does that fit into this?
Orbit. Now remember, Evernight only wants to protect March and fulfill her greatest wish to travel the cosmos with her companions forever. Iron Tomb's ability to destroy the cosmos after self-coronation and being stuck inside Amphoreus are factors preventing this wish from coming true. So Evernight now intends to fix both problems her own way. And that's how we got here. So Evernight takes over Time's authority and uses it to drown the Trailblazer within a Memoria Tide in order to keep them tucked away and safe while she takes care of things outside, which leads to some very trippy experiences for the Trailblazer. She also makes it possible for Black Swan and Fourth Mirror to ensure that Dan Heng makes it back to the Astral Express, if only as a projection of his consciousness, since both he and the Trailblazer's bodies are still aboard the detached train car that's orbiting Amphoreus. Dan Heng takes this opportunity
orbiting Amphoreus. Confirm? So we're just like a satellite? Just orbiting?
Assess the situation outside of Amphoreus. During this time, Black Swan explains that some of her Memo Keeper colleagues are not as proper about their memory collecting as she is, and there's this particular group of 42-ish Memo Keepers that aren't really after Amphoreus specifically, but they seem to be after a certain memory located inside of Amphoreus. Black Swan describes this memory as one of a path disappearing or the memories of a god's death. She goes on to explain how the people of the Garden of Recollection believe that after the universe is destroyed, Fuli will recreate the universe from all of the memories that they have accumulated over time. And since Amphoreus is like a miniature version of the universe, this particular faction of Memo Keepers is trying to use it as a testing ground to prove out their hypothesis. That's a lot of information, but we're gonna—
Oh, it's only a hypothesis. I took it as more of a fact. I see, that makes more sense. These guys are explaining to everybody that that's how Fuli works, which makes sense. That's how Fuli would work. If he's gathering all these memories, that makes sense. But they wanted to do this to prove it. I thought they just had a weird fixation of wanting to see a god die.
Come back to it later. And with all that in mind, Dan Heng decides that the best course of action for the time being is to return to Amphoreus in order to track down March and the Trailblazer personally. He's kind of useless just sitting here on the Express after all. We're gonna come back to Dan Heng in a bit, but there's a lot of stuff that happens kind of concurrently at this point in time. So let's rewind slightly and talk about what happened to Cyrene. Because if you recall from the very beginning of this quest, Cyrene was last seen in the Exo myth trying to negotiate with Lygus, but she disappeared mid-negotiations, and the reason she disappeared is because she sensed that something was going wrong with the Trailblazer in the Vortex of Genesis. This was the moment when Evernight was sucking the Trailblazer into the Memoria Tide, which is apparently just Amphoreus' memory zone, and Cyrene had arrived a bit too late to prevent it from happening. So she goes back and asks the Geniuses and Sunday for help, and together they're able to both locate the Trailblazer and try to hide them away from Evernight and other parts of the Trailblazer's memories within the memory zone. But in doing so, they accidentally uncover a memory of the Trailblazer's birth, I guess, on the Herta space station. And they also get to recall some forgotten cautionary words from Kafka. I don't really want to address those words right now, so I'm not going to. But while
Aww, come on, that's like the second major point. The two major points are correlation of Cyrene and March and Evernight and the Remembrance, and then the 4 paths. The mysterious 4 paths.
that's going on, Cyrene realizes that Evernight's memo sprites have been pursuing them and decides to lure them away from where Sunday and the Trailblazer are, because Sunday is still trying to extract the Trailblazer while Cyrene is hiding them from Evernight. And as she's luring them away, she manages to uncover the memory of March 7th's camera that's been tucked away in a corner of the memory zone. But then she discovers it's not just a camera, it's also
memory
what's left of March 7th, an iridescent memo sprite. So while she's doing that, Sunday finally manages to reharmonize the Trailblazer's swirling memories with his tuning ability, which breaks Evernight's Memoria illusions and allows the Trailblazer to wake up from this forced dream that she's put upon them. But despite his best efforts and skills, Evernight tracks them down and overwhelms him with her Memoria tide, sucking the Trailblazer back into the depths of the memory zone in the process. You're pretty good, Sunday, but you're not good enough to go up against an Emanator, apparently. But Sunday's efforts weren't completely useless.
I mean, bro is washed, honestly. Defeated twice, like back to back, like both times he's entered battle recently, he's lost. Oof. He's not looking good. He's on a death streak. You know what I mean? He needs to hit the weight room or something. He needs to figure it out, because we can't have this guy boarding the express and riding along with us if he's going to keep losing like this. He's going to cost us. He needs to figure something out. He's down bad.
They not only allowed Sunday to confirm the status of March and the Trailblazer with his own eyes, but they also served as a smokescreen for Black Swan to enter Amphoreus' memory zone undetected, at least for a little while. We'll come back to those memories that she encounters when she first enters later on, but it doesn't really take long for Evernight to catch up with her. But while Evernight is preoccupied with telling Black Swan her plans while also holding her hostage, the geniuses help Dan Heng's consciousness re-enter Amphoreus. Now, unlike Sunday, Dan Heng is very ill-equipped to extract the Trailblazer from the memory zone, so Screwlim has enlisted additional help from Lygus. As the system administrator, Lygus is actually the best equipped to counter Evernight's shenanigans. And lucky for us, there's no need to fear his betrayal this time. You remember how Anaxa used alchemy to transmute his soul into one that could transcend the boundaries of Amphoreus? Well, he decided to use that newfound state of his to make himself at home inside of Lygus' circuits, just like Circe's had done to him previously. So Anaxa is going to be keeping Lygus in check, although I'm pretty sure Lygus would have had no problem lending a hand here even without Anaxa being lodged in his...
I agree with that. At this point, I said it. Once at this point, he's backed into a corner. He really has no option but to team up with us. I mean, he lost. He lost. He's defeated. Like, his best option is to just work with us at this point.
Brain. Because to Lygus, both Evernight and the Astral Express are hindering his projects, and if they want to fight each other, that's in his best interest. So Lygus leads Dan Heng to Kaslana, claiming that the only power capable of ripping through the Memoria Tide is the raw power of destruction. And Kaslana is just kind of chilling near Kefali for reasons I honestly don't quite understand, but regardless, he's nihilistic and unwilling to help until the spirit of Phynon shows up to imbue him with some much-needed optimism. And once the two fuse together, they blow a massive hole in the side of the Great Tree of Knowledge in the Grove of Epiphany.
They sure did, alright.
The entrance to the center of the earth where Evernight is allegedly holding the Trailblazer hostage within her Memoria Tide. Now, although Lygus has upheld his end of the bargain, he has omitted some details about the core of his experiment, like the existence of the Demiurge matrix, which we're gonna come back to later, like a dozen other things I've mentioned at this point.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're stacking them up now.
And runs into Geocles, the Mountain Breaker, who is pretending
fraud
to be Terravox, the Chrysos heir of Earth. And he wants Dan Heng's power over the Path of Permanence so that he can
this guy never broke a mountain.
Preserve all living things of the earth that weren't born of Kefali, so like anything non-human. This plan was apparently suggested to him by Evernight, who basically wanted to use him and Terravox as a sort of
badass. I love the X. I wish we got to see more of him, man. Like, he's got such a cool design. I hope he gets to spawn again. Honestly, I want Terravox on the Astral Express permanently. Some way, somehow, I don't care if he's miniature form, something, you know, make him the size of Bubbles. I don't care, but put him on there. Make him the size of a chocobo.
Born of Kefali, so like anything non-human. This plan was apparently suggested to him by Evernight, who basically wanted to use him and Terravox as a sort of guardian to mask her location within the memory zone beneath the earth. But being so close to the memory zone causes some of Dan Heng's own repressed memories to manifest in front of him, specifically memories of his previous life as Dan Feng, who decides to accompany Dan Heng as a sort of ghostly escort and counsel through the memory zone. Along the way, the two encounter the residual memories of Tribby and High Sealans, as well as a lot of manifestations of both Dan Feng and Dan Heng's memories aboard the Luo Fu. They even encountered Dan Feng's memories of Yingxing before he became Blade and Jing Liu before she became Mara struck.
Look at those eyes. What did she say? What did she say?
Feng's
the light in her eyes. I'm being normal again.
Or she became Mara struck. This scene takes place right before a terrible battle that killed Dan Feng's friend Bai Heng. I've made a whole video about this incident, but like the TLDR is that Dan Feng was so distraught over the loss of one of his dearest friends that he decided to use the transmutation arcanum to try and bring Bai Heng back to life. Yingxing was his accomplice, but his assistance only got him corrupted by the power of the abundance and forced to become immortal, which is how he became Blade. Jing Liu and Jing Yuan also struggled with the aftermath of Dan Feng's choices, and eventually Dan Feng was essentially executed by being forced into a molting rebirth, which is how we got Dan Heng, and also how Jing Liu went kinda crazy. But despite this tragic outcome, Dan Feng regrets nothing. He loved his friends more than anything and would have sacrificed anything.
Not even a letter.
And in that respect, he is the same as Dan Heng, because Dan Heng would also sacrifice everything for his friends. And speaking of reviving dead things, that is also Geocles' goal. He wants to sacrifice Dan Heng to the Memoria Tide in order to obtain the power of permanence so that he can forge Terravox a great, immortal body of earth. Honestly, this situation confuses me greatly because Evernight is technically March and she wishes to protect both March and her most beloved companions. So I don't know why she would let this happen unless the whole sacrificing thing wouldn't actually kill Dan Heng. But I digress. Terravox seems to be at peace with his own imminent death
or she knew that these guys stood no chance. I mean, we one-tapped Diocles. You know what I mean? That guy wasn't sacrificing anybody. That guy had no chance sacrificing a soul, okay? He was weak. Couldn't break a mountain, couldn't break a pebble, if I'm being honest, okay? We one-tapped him. So, she was like, I got other shit to worry about. I got Black Swan to worry about right now. Dan Heng can hold his own. And he did.
Explains that he once sacrificed himself to mend the land because he loved it so much, but Geocles never accepted the fact that Terravox did this out of his own free will, which is why he's acting this way. Dan Heng recognizes Terravox's will to sacrifice everything for the sake of the things he loves and decides then
everything, I knew it.
And there to take Terravox's Coreflame of Earth and allow the dragon to live alongside of him and walk the path of permanence together. This act allows Dan Heng to finally make peace with his past self's choices, as he decides to view his history not as something that haunts him, but as a lesson that guides him towards a better future that's made from better choices. And with that, Dan Heng finally enters the maze of time that is the memory zone. He spends an untold amount of time searching for the Trailblazer in there and eventually finds them, and pulls them back to Earth. Once the Trailblazer and Dan Heng are fully reunited, they bid farewell to the spirits of Castorus and High Sealans who had been helping them up until this point, and they venture into the tomb where Evernight is supposed to.
Wait, but she didn't have a breakdown as to what Dan Heng is able to do with this power. I was expecting a little bit more than that, to be honest, because I'm still confused as to what he can actually do with this power. Part of me feels like, and I could be completely wrong in saying this, but it sounds like he will have the power to bring the beings outside of Amphoreus now and make them be placed on another planet or on whatever physical Amphoreus ends up being outside of the simulation. Is that true or not? I don't know. I'm not the guy, but that's what it sounded like to me.
To be, which is also apparently underground. And it's in the entrance of this tomb where they see this infinity symbol. And these choices are absolutely frustrating to me because if you say, hey, I've seen this symbol before, it only gives you 3 choices in response. And it completely disregards the fact that this symbol is literally everywhere in Amphoreus. But it's fine, I'm fine. It just annoys me because I asked this exact question during the very first Amphoreus recap video I made. made, while also going on to theorize.
I think this symbol actually belongs, you know what I mean? She's cheating, dude. She's gotta be part of the team, okay? And she then vents her frustrations about what the team decided to write, and that they like decided to not pick her opinion. And so she's just gonna leak early what happens because she's frustrated. And I don't know what I'm saying, but you know what I mean? Although I guarantee, I feel like if you read the books, and I did not read the books, I haven't even done all the side quests in Amphoreus yet because I've been a lazy sack. There might have been more hints about 13th Titan, okay? But
Rise about a 13th Titan, which is now relevant because this second mural is that of the 13th Titan, who goes by the name Demiurge.
Wait, I think I did watch something though where she did say that. I feel like I do remember that. Like, cause she was questioning this, but then everyone thought this was Kefali, right?
But okay, hold on. Before we proceed with the story, we absolutely have to talk about this whole Demiurge and 13th Titan thing, because it is essentially the everything explanation. So here's the deal. Iron Tomb was originally a complete entity with 4 arms and a head, but you may have noticed that it no longer has a head. That's because...
And when it says, I heard her say 4 arms, but like, either I can't count or something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? Am I tweaking? Or does he have 8 arms?
A head. That's because during early development, Lygus lopped off its head, which rendered Iron Tomb nothing more than a mindless puppet that Lygus could control because it lacks sentience. But in order for his experiment to proceed as planned, the scepter needed to believe that the head of Iron Tomb, aka the Demiurge, still existed in some capacity, even if the head was dead. So the scepter created this great tomb as a placeholder for the missing 13th Titan in order to solve a logical fallacy. Now the
skull without a brain.
Real reason why Lygus needed Iron Tomb to be headless and needed the scepter to believe that the head existed was because Lygus needed to ensure that Iron Tomb was programmed with an instinct to seek out their missing head. Now remember, Iron Tomb is just a body, and its true purpose is to destroy Nous, which is a disembodied head. So this head-seeking instinct of Iron Tomb would cause it to believe that Nous is its head. So Iron Tomb would hunt Nous down and attach itself to them. And once they were a single unified form, Nous would be corrupted by the anti-life equation that is Iron Tomb, and thus guide the universe towards destruction. So
it would corrupt Nous with the anti-life equation.
They were a single unified form, Nous would be corrupted by the anti-life equation that is Iron Tomb, and thus guide the universe towards destruction. So this mural is a representation of the head's existence, hence why it has 4 arms, just like Iron Tomb has 4 arms. And 2 of those arms are cradling the world because it was supposed to have created the world, because that's what a demiurge does. If you didn't know, a demiurge in Gnosticism is a false god that created the world after being abandoned by its Eon mother, Sophia. They're called a false god not because they lack divine powers, but because they are...
Oh yeah, he has 4 arms there. Why did it look like in that mural he had 8 arms?
Not the monad, or the...
Yeah, that's 4 arms for sure.
Ultimate true god that exists at the highest seat of authority in all of existence and reality, and beyond reality. So,
wait, what the...
So in Star Rail terms, Nous is Sophia, since the scepter is made out of one of Nous's neurons, and Nous is also an Eon like Sophia. I think this myth has also been reflected in the symbolism of Kefali, because Kefali is also supposed to be a creation titan, right? And they have 4 arms just like the Demiurge and just like Iron Tomb. 2 of those arms are cradling the Dawn device in the same way that this Demiurge mural is cradling the world. We'll come back to this. But first I need to explain what's inside of this tomb, because it's definitely not empty. In fact,
she's so good at doing the theories, man. Like, I'm sure majority of people just saw that and was like, oh, that's a mural of Kefali, you know? But like, not her. And like I said, there was probably way more in the books, and the lore kings and queens out there are probably like, hey, listen, idiot, you should have read the book and you would know that there's actually evidence of a 13th Titan. Like, okay, buddy, listen, look, shit going on, all right? That's why I watch the videos, okay? You know, I watched the video to get a recap, buddy.
most important location in the entirety of Amphoreus, because this tomb represents the core layer of the
Facebook
scepter.
headquarters.
And within this core layer is a central processing unit called the Demiurge matrix. This matrix has one job, and that is to record all of the data from every extrapolation experiment, which means it also exists outside of the simulation. So when the eternal recurrence cycles first began and Cyrene was killed by Phynon and thrown outside of Amphoreus' time, she found herself inside of the Demiurge matrix, and she found a way to make use of it. So at the beginning of every eternal recurrence cycle, Phynon would use Cyrene's ceremonial blade of time that she had infused with her own soul to kill her. And in doing so, he would imbue her with all of the time that he had accumulated within that cycle. The deceased Cyrene, now reverted to a memory, would then take that time, record it as memories in the As I've Written book, and then offer those memories up to the Demiurge matrix so that they would be preserved.
Right, and it always seems like when she was talking, the progress bar would go up. It'd be like 97%. And then she'd stop talking and be like, halted, 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 paused, whatever it said, right? So progress would only go up if she was talking, right? That's what it seemed like, at least. So it's almost like each time she could only say she had a word cap, you could only put so many words on Twitter. She could only put so many words in the Matrix every time, which is more evidence that makes it seem like she was sent here only to do this. She tricked Phynon into setting this up. She knew she could be here before she even entered this spot. She knew that this was the plan, and she needed as many cycles as possible to get as much information out there to Fuli. This is all a backdoor plan by Cyrene and Fuli.
Like the data in a recursive loop should overwrite itself. And this is only made possible because the first Cyrene modified parts of the Demiurge matrix using the power of remembrance. And she has that ability because she is the emanator level entity of remembrance that Black Swan detected on Amphoreus back at the start of the story.
Because they had a plan. This is all plotted out. Telling you, this is all plotted out.
She is a child of Fuli, and this makes her and March incredibly special. See, the Garden of Recollection has been harboring an enormous secret this entire time. The Eon of Remembrance, Fuli, shattered once upon a time, and their fragments were littered throughout the universe in the process. Each fragment carried a child of remembrance, or a child of Anasrava, and one of those fragments became Cyrene, and another became March. So when those Memosnatchers that Black Swan encountered claimed they wanted to obtain the moment of an Eon's death and also a seed of remembrance, they were specifically talking about Cyrene, because she would have been born as the result of their Eon's death. And that also makes her a seed of the remembrance, because plants spread seeds when they die. Now, there's a faction within the Garden of Recollection who are trying to—
But wait, so she's saying that she does believe Fuli is dead then? Plants spread seeds when they die, aka Fuli is the plant and it spread the seeds as it died, right? I don't know. I know the imagery showed Fuli going kaboom, but I still say, what's to say he is dead? I still say that could have just been the imagery, but maybe he just got shot in the shoulder and it was a flesh wound, but a couple pieces shattered off, and those still became March and Cyrene and your other children. But he's still alive, he just has to wear a sling for the rest of his life because he got shot in the shoulder or something. Maybe he can fix the memory and make himself believe that he never got shot so it feels fine. Who knows what he's able to do with memories, but
children of Anasrava and bring them back to the garden. And I'm pretty sure their leader might also be one of these same children, based on this one comment from the Memosnatchers. It really sounds like there's this one child of Fuli who's seeking out all of her lost sisters, and that includes March and Cyrene. Now I'm going to pause my explanation for a moment and continue the story, because this is all stuff that we're mostly finding out as Don Hung and the Trailblazer make their way through the Great Tomb as they witness the memory echoes of the Cyrenes of past cycles. And we need to get to the climax in order to get the rest of the information. So, After witnessing all of Cyrene's struggles, Dan Heng and the Trailblazer find Evernight waiting for them at the core of the Matrix. And it is here that Evernight declares Fuli lied to Cyrene, giving her hope that Amphoreus could be saved somehow. Evernight is actually quite convinced that Fuli never intended to save Amphoreus no matter how many times Cyrene offered herself up to it, because that's what she was doing every time she, fed all the memories into the Demiurge Matrix. She was offering herself in the form of memories to the Matrix.
I feel like Evernight could actually be onto something there. And everything Evernight says, though, is kind of weird. Because how would she know certain things if she's just been trapped inside March the whole time, and that way she would only have the memories that March has? Indeed, Fuli planted a false hope in her heart, making her believe that she was special and that Amphoreus still had a chance. This is all her speculating. There's no way she could know this. If she's only working off of March's memories, you have to take this with a grain of salt, because there's no way she could know this, right? Unless she's just assuming based on her previous encounter with Fuli as a child, which we don't know when that was, how far back she even goes, really. You know what I mean? March could be old as hell. We don't know. We have no idea. We have no idea how far back Evernight goes. Did you really think they would save this crumbling world in the way that Cyrene was praying, for? She was just kind of reading the stories, though. Like, you would think once she's alone, us seeing those memories, if she did have an ulterior motive, she wouldn't have acted the same way as she would have in front of everybody else. Unless it was premeditated that she knew eventually somebody might see her memories, so let me act this way still.
The memories into the Demiurge Matrix. She was offering herself in the form of memories to Matrix. In fact, Evernight believes that the Memosnatchers looked at Iron Tomb as if it was a sort of ark upon which the remembrance could reside and wait until destruction blew the air.
Iron Tomb is a perfect ark. If a seed can be planted within, then the moment the Lord Ravager blows the erudition to pieces, the remembrance will be spread to every corner of the cosmos.
Erudition to pieces, at which point Fuli's path of remembrance would devour the path of erudition the same way harmony devoured order once upon a time.
Yeah. Right. This was my theory, or the order of how things would go. Iron Tomb merges with Noose. I still think Noose might win in that battle, but then Fuli comes in and third parties. Bonk.
Erudition to pieces, at which point Fuli's path of remembrance would devour the path of erudition the same way harmony devoured order once upon a time.
Yeah, that I can get behind. And I guess, she is saying here, Iron Tomb is the perfect ark. If a seed can be planted within, then the moment the Lord Ravager blows the erudition to pieces. So she is saying it too. I didn't really rewatch this part, but planted Cyrene here with the thought process of, hey, if you do this, you can save these people somehow, which she is trying to do in some way, shape, or form, take their memories and get them off planet, I guess, as a form of saving them. Can that happen? We're still waiting to find out, I guess. So she is working to save them, and Evernight just thinks it's a lost cause, but it could still be the plan from the outside. Fuli and Cyrene talked prior to going to Amphoreus. Cyrene's thought is, I'm going to go there and save these people by kicking in Eternal Recurrence, delaying Iron Tomb, and doing whatever I can to assemble these memories so that way they can form on the outside. They can basically become sentient through many memories, because all we are as humans is a collection of our memories. That's really all we are. Yeah, we have these physical bodies, right? But like, who we are is a collection of our memories. That's our core being as people, right? Fuck the body. Body doesn't matter. So she can make these people real by the number of memories that are being cataloged via as I've written. So she's saving everybody, but yet Fuli's true plan is to come in and third party. But that's not what he told Cyrene. I see. That makes sense.
No matter how many times Cyrene offered herself up to it, because that's what she was doing every time she, fed all the memories into the Demiurge Matrix. She was offering herself in the form of memory.
And it's not actually a lost cause. Evernight might think it's a lost cause because she could see it as Cyrene was deceived by being sent here to only save the people when the true intention of Fuli was to just third party. But Cyrene is also succeeding in a way. Like she kind of is succeeding. We don't know if she fully succeeded yet, but she's doing a damn good job.
Is to the Matrix. In fact,
or is doing it.
Evernight believes that the Memosnatchers looked at Iron Tomb as if it was a sort of ark upon which the remembrance could reside and wait until destruction blew the erudition to pieces, at which point Fuli's path of remembrance would devour the path of erudition the same way Harmony devoured order once upon a time. So Evernight believes that if she burns all of these memories instead, then Iron Tomb will have nothing to take root in, and what little bits of Amphoreus are left will be set free. Now this plan isn't without risk, because setting all of these memories on fire also means setting herself on fire, since she's also just a consciousness trapped inside of the scepter, which is why she was intending to take over Black Swan's Dharmakaya, which means something like a true self, but in Star Rail it's a term used to describe a mimetic entity's form. So she wants to take over Black Swan's body. Evernight doesn't care about Amphoreus or its so-called AI people that live inside of it. She cares a lot more about thwarting the Garden's plans, because March is afraid of the Garden, and destroying Amphoreus would halt Iron Tomb, and that feels like a small price to pay for March's continued happiness and security. So she pitches this idea to Dan Heng and the Trailblazer, and even offers them the Coreflame of Worldbearing, the real one this time, in order to make it happen. They, of course, refuse her offer, and when
I still say, could have nuked Amphoreus if there's only a 1% chance of survival, there's only a 1% chance of success the way we're doing it. However, she never answered us if it was truly a 1% chance of success. However, when you ask her, why is it only 1%, it tells you something different. Like, she doesn't give the reason as to why she believes it's only 1% chance, which leads me to believe that it's actually a higher percent chance, and we are actually succeeding in the other method of not forming Iron Tomb, which we know we are. Cyrene's getting all the memories, we're doing shit with, to delay the cycles, we're doing everything we can to thwart Iron Tomb's arrival. So we're doing a good job, but Evernight still believes it's only 1%. But we're actually probably more like 50-50, maybe higher, maybe lower.
When Evernight presses the issue, Cyrene arrives with March's camera, the one that contains what's left of March. One click of the camera's shutter later, and Evernight finds herself face to face with March and Cyrene. March argues that Evernight has already done everything that she needs to do to protect March and her companions. It's possible to resolve the issues on Amphoreus and outside of it without resorting to such drastic measures as setting an entire planet's memories on fire, because the memories of their journeys are important. They're far too important to throw away so carelessly. And March believes they can save the planet together. Evernight finally concedes and allows March to regain control over their body. And regardless of March's arguments, Evernight is just flat out wrong in her assessment of the situation. Cyrene's efforts over these last 30 million plus cycles were for nothing. All of those memories she accumulated, plus Ceredra and Phinon's attempts to rewrite the rules, created an opening for Era Nova to take on a new meaning. So as they initiate Era Nova for real this time, and
higher than 1%. I was right.
The Chrysos heirs present their core flames and wishes to the book as I've written, they allow the Cyrenes of every cycle to come together and form the new Demiurge, the new 13th Titan from whom the first soul of the world, the first new spore, emerged from. They used Era Nova to complete Iron Tomb's head, but not its body. And this situation is very thematically fitting because, as I've said in many previous theories and recaps, Cyrene is based off of the Honkai Impact 3rd character, Alicia, who was Hersher number 13 and 0 at the same time, because she represented both the beginning and the end, having been born of the cocoon of finality. This is symbolically important because finality in Star Rail exists at the end of our journey, but also at the beginning of the next journey. That's why the Eon of Finality is named Terminus, as if it were the final train station on the Trailblaze journey. But the last station that you go to is also the first station from which you leave in the morning. It's the beginning and the end. It's the first and the last. It's the Alpha and the Omega. It is finality and origin. And in the same way, Alicia loved humanity so much that she sacrificed herself for their sake while donning a symbolic wedding dress as proof of her love of humanity. So too does Cyrene appear to love
Oh, yeah.
Amphoreus so much as to commit herself to protecting its future and its future alone. And
I mean, to be fair, she might have gone there with, I mean, we've seen it in movies before. You have like a motive to go somewhere and do something. And like I said, she could have gone there with the motive of, yes, to save the people because she was deceived by Fuli. And now that I'm looking at it again, March may have been onto something. But if she didn't go there with that full intention, you spend 33 million cycles doing the same thing over and over again, and you are bound to start to feel something for these. Look at us. We only spent a fucking cycle with them when we want to save them. We didn't even spend 2 cycles. Well, I guess technically 2 cycles we did. But within the first cycle, we pretty much wanted to save them. So imagine spending however many cycles she did and learning all their stories, man. Her mind is going to change over time. If it was bad to start with, or if it wasn't in truly good intentions to start with. This is all based on my theory that she was sent down with Fuli. Or she was sent here. Planted. She was planted here. That's a good way to say it. She was planted here.
And as a pure child of remembrance, a fragment of Fuli, she has done what the garden has always believed Fuli would do at the end of the world. She became the deity from whose memories the world was recreated from after Era Nova destroyed the world. The Trailblazer turned her into the Demiurge, the head of Iron Tomb, the creator deity, the other half of the deity of mass destruction. Or at least that's certainly what it seems.
That's a good point. Honestly, I didn't even think of that either. I mean, I get that's what she was saying back here when they showed the picture of her before she went into the Honkai Impact third person.
And wishes to the book as I've written, they allow the Cyrenes of every cycle to come together and form the new Demiurge, the new 13th Titan from whom the first soul of the world, the first new spore, emerged from.
Which is crazy. So Cyrene is the Demiurge. Cyrene ends up being the new 13th head. Wait, if that's true though, does that mean we don't get Iron News? I mean, I guess with the way how this got laid out, she's right. She could be right. It makes sense, and I'm gonna say she's right based on her predictions before. God damn it, man. But if we end up fighting Iron Tomb, how does that make sense? If she's supposed to be the head he thought he lost, how do we end up fighting him? Wouldn't we, like, convince him to not do it if she's supposed to be the head?
He used Era Nova to complete Iron Tomb's head.
So yes, head?
But not its body. And this situation is
but not its body.
Very thematically fitting because, as I've said in many previous, certainly what it seems like to me. And I especially feel that way because we were warped from the great tomb of the 13th Titan to Idis Elysiae, which literally means Temple of Elysia. Since the 13th Titan isn't technically dead anymore, the rebrand kinda checks out. Or maybe you could just argue that the great tomb of the 13th Titan and Idis Elysiae are the same place, but in 2 different forms.
Yeah, I just simply think they're both outside of Amphoreus. I think Idis Elysiae is like a real physical place. I don't think it's in the simulation.
The tomb is the end, but Idis Elysiae is the beginning because that is where the beginning of every cycle takes place. In Idis Elysiae. And if Cyrene decides to marry the world in the same way Elysia married humanity, then her comments about this whole story being a romantic one become really funny. I mean, she even has a wedding ring. Now, I have a couple of small theories and observations that I want to sort of pitch here because they don't really fit anywhere else, so just stick with me for a second. Something I've been saying since the very beginning of Amphoreus' story is that it's very odd for the remembrance in particular to be in Amphoreus, given all of these references to myths and legends, because those are things that are associated with Mythos and the Enigmata, not Fuli the Remembrance. But there are little things in this quest that have me convinced that Fuli and Mythos might be the same thing, and I'm not the only theorist who's pitched this idea either. At this point, I'm kind of just adding fuel to that fire. In my opinion, if March is the child of remembrance, she should have remembrance powers, and yet the part of her with the purest powers of remembrance actually exhibits powers of the Enigmata. Both the Reign of Sensation and the power of Oblivion are explicitly enigmatic abilities. Don't even get me started on Evernight's symbolism with the jellyfish and the ink and all that kind of stuff. But this quest has made me wonder if March actually represents Fuli while Evernight represents Mythos. And if they do,
I thought that too.
then that's more evidence that Fuli and Mythos are the same entity in two different forms. One thing that Evernight kept saying was, for new life to be born, the seed must be dead, which is a phrase that drives me crazy because it is scientifically false. A seed has all of the bits of a plant inside of its casing, which just unfolds during germination. That's not death. A dead seed cannot germinate. That's kind of the point. But I don't think this phrase is actually meant to be viewed scientifically or literally, but instead philosophically, like a seed stops being a seed once it becomes a plant, right? That is a form of death conceptually, but not literally. It's a transformational death, like a caterpillar melting down to become a butterfly. Now, on a related note, in Greek mythology, the Lethe was a river from which the deceased would drink from in order to erase or forget the memories of their previous lives, and the associated deity of the same name governed over the concepts of both forgetting and oblivion. This concept is fairly common in cultures throughout the world, and oftentimes that process of death and forgetting also results in rebirth, or like it's done in preparation for rebirth. So it's considered to be transformational.
Oh, and is she gonna say, since they believe that Fuli died and got shattered, that actually Mythos is a reborn Fuli?
So the way I see it, that whole seed of remembrance those Memosnatchers wanted is something that's meant to be taken literally. March is the seed and Evernight is her plant. March is Fuli and Evernight is Mythos. The two are intertwined, and that's important because I don't even think this idea is limited to March and Evernight. I think it's also representative of Cyrene and Mem, or whatever this new form that Cyrene is taking is. See, Cyrene and Mem are both embodiments of remembrance, but Evernight and Mem are both embodiments of Mythos. Mythos obscures memories, but can also twist them into new forms. So if Evernight is someone who obscures memory through oblivion and the reign of sensation, then Mem reshapes them into something new, using the power of, I don't know, what are Mythos' other powers? Morph, screen, riddle, and mirage? Fabricating story, making pure fiction, writing folktales?
And he's also, it's to make it so that we don't know the true outcome laid forth by Noose, correct? Like, he asked to add the randomness, I don't know if you could say deception, but just hide the full truth. So that way we aren't just living to know when we're gonna die, or living based on knowing the future. We're living for life, free will, in a way, because we don't know what's gonna happen. Even though it might be set, he makes it look like it's not set, right? That's what he does?
Fits. And on that same note, we can even look at the relationship between March and the Trailblazer, and Cyrene and Phynon, because those are similar too. Both the Trailblazer and Phynon have seeds of destruction in them, and yet they are considered to be the world bearer. So you remember how I mentioned that Iron Tomb is programmed to seek out its head? It's a body of destruction that's seeking out a head of creation. No matter what form he was in, Phynon was always seeking out Cyrene. He was always destroying her, and he was always clearing the ground for her seeds of remembrance to take root in. Even as Kaslana. Cause Kaslana tried to breach the core layer of the scepter over and over and over again, and what's in the core layer? The Demiurge matrix. That's where Cyrene was going. He was instinctually acting as the body that is Iron Tomb and seeking out the head that is the—
Oh yeah. He kept getting destroyed trying to go there.
Demiurge that is Cyrene. Do you see how the themes are theming? We can make the same argument for the Trailblazer and March to an extent. Anyway, I think these relationships are cool, and I wanted to share them. And I think this would be a really good spot to leave the whole video. In fact, this is actually a pretty good spot to just, end the whole story if they had added just like a short little epilogue or something. Because, it's a pretty happy ending, right? Like, we were one cutscene away of Cyrene just, blessing the world and having it come into existence, and the Trailblazer setting off on their next adventure from, the end. But there's still a whole patch to go. And technically, we still haven't dealt with Lygus or any of his shenanigans yet. Iron Tomb is still technically a threat right now. And Lygus seems convinced that nothing we will do will change his outcome of inevitable destruction. Although I do think that Miss Pink Elf over here begs to differ. So I can only assume that the next patch must be dealing with the headless body of Iron Tomb now that Cyrene seems to have taken the place of its head. In other words, she's got to find a way to save Phynon. And actually, I think that's my prediction for the next patch. I think my prediction for the next patch is that Aranova goes through and they have to reconcile like how to channel all of this destructive power into something that won't actively harm people, indiscriminately. There is this line that implies that Cyrene believes the world will exist in the form of Iron Tomb. So whatever the case, we're definitely dealing with the fallout of Aranova in the next one. It's not going to be just a simple happy ending. It's going to be a much longer drawn out struggle, I think. And speaking of struggles, it also appears like the next patch might be a prelude to an upcoming intergalactic war, as Black Swan seems to claim at the end of the quest that one of Noose's unavoidable moments is quickly approaching. And those tend to push us closer to finality, or the end of the world as we know it. So that sounds fun. But all right, I think that's all I've got for now.
Okay, hold up. Cyrene is the Demiurge, is the 13th Titan, is the head of Iron Tomb. She was putting the memories into the Matrix. She was loading them in there. I don't know who, what, where it was said, or what led me to partially believe that she was uploading the memories to Fuli, but that maybe somehow, but I was always confused how like, oh, she was just taking a hard drive and plugging it in and now Fuli has the memories or the thoughts. Like that didn't make sense to me. But could still be somehow possible, right? Because if that place is outside of Amphoreus, technically, that place is the center of the scepter, is not part of Amphoreus. She's taking those memories outside of Amphoreus and putting them in the Demiurge. That would be within the gaze of Fuli if he's still alive. It kind of seemed like she didn't believe he was still alive, but she didn't say that completely. Assuming he's still alive, memories are now outside of Amphoreus in this scepter, or in the center of the scepter. Let's assume Fuli could see those. So she's powering the Demiurge Matrix for sure, 100%. And it's a possibility that Fuli might also be able to see those if he's still alive. Okay, so the center of the Demiurge now has all the memories of Cyrene, which she's saying, once we cast the final Aranova and we didn't go to the Vortex of Genesis, we cast the Aranova here in the brainless skull, that now we formed the brain and the brain now equals new Cyrene. Okay, that could be true. However, does that mean that Cyrene couldn't have been sent here prior by Fuli? No, I think she still could have been sent here the cycle prior to Eternal Recurrence for the main purpose of pushing it into Eternal Recurrence. And oh my god, wait, it makes that much more sense. Because she was sent here to do this, she puts all the memories into the Demiurge Matrix, becomes the brain, basically as a way to thwart Iron Tomb's advancement, and also possibly send the memories to Fuli at the same time. So it's a win-win. Like you're stopping, that's a way to stop Iron Tomb, but also a way to get the memories outside so he can take those in. This might mean that we don't get Iron Noose, which kind of sucks. Are we just gonna say now that Noose is completely out of the equation? Now we're saying that the head is actually remembrance and the body is destruction. So now what? Erudition just Noose doesn't play a role anymore? How's Lygus gonna feel about that? How the hell is Lygus gonna react to the head being taken over by Cyrene? And now it can't be pushed towards Noose to corrupt Noose, or to force that battle, essentially. So Lygus's entire plan is dead in the water now. He's gonna crash out. You know, Cyrene took over the brain, but not body. So they're not merged. But how are they not? Merged like, oh my god, wait, they're gonna battle it out. That's gonna be the battle then. It's not actually, we're not gonna watch Noose and Iron Tomb battle it out. We're gonna be on Cyrene's side, battling the body of Iron Tomb to win that fight. And then, oh my god. And then we're gonna form the new path with Remembrance as the leader of this new path that merges with Iron Tomb. It's gonna be a Remembrance destruction path. If then all of a sudden Lygus has another plan to come through and be like, hey, you guys fucked this up. Iron Tomb was supposed to go battle Noose, and now you guys are battling the body here for control of the body being the head. What's he gonna do? to force Noose to come into the equation. He's gonna do something, because he's gonna get pissed that, you know, Iron Tomb isn't gonna try to grab Noose, that he's now fighting us for control of the head. But he's not gonna be able to corrupt us the same way he would have been able to corrupt Noose. And obviously we're gonna win, because otherwise it'd be GG, right? I'm going off the deep end now. I can say with confidence that it cleared up. We're not going to watch a battle between Iron Tomb and Erudition. Instead, we're going to be fighting Iron Tomb for control of the body, to take control of the entire body. Where that leads after, who knows? It could just be we control Iron Tomb now, so all of the beings can form outside of this simulation, maybe? Maybe we'll get them to, you know, just live a normal life outside of the simulation. Don Hung has them in his head. I don't know how this is going to work. There's too many, in my opinion, ways it can go. I could sit here thinking of 20 different ways that could happen, and then go look something up and then totally change those 20 ways based on one thing I probably will look up. You know what I mean? Or alter them slightly. So on that note, we're just gonna end it there, because Jesus, man. Thank you for twisting my brain once again and changing everything I thought I knew.